Our ego is in a permanent resistance to what is. I'll say that again. Our ego is in a permanent resistance to what is. And what keeps our ego alive is we just keep assuming it is us. It speaks on our behalf. It makes judgments on our behalf. And then it reacts to its own judgments on our behalf. And what keeps this process happening over and over again, like Groundhog Day, is that we assume because there's something in us speaking and judging and creating reaction to its own judgments that it made, we assume that this identity is us, and that's ego, which is why they call it the illusionary identity or a pseudo identity. It seems so much like us. It's easy to mistake it. It's speaking, you know, with all our lives we've become accustomed to it. It's speaking in us. You know, it makes judgments, and we just assume that this is the way it is, and this is us, this is me speaking. But as you step back, this is where mindfulness comes in, and the importance of mindfulness. You step back within yourself and you observe your ego. Listen to it whinge and complain all day, but don't associate with it anymore. And that's what ends ego. It's because we keep feeding it with our attention, and we keep assuming that it's our identity. That's what keeps it alive. So that's the secret to lessening your ego and weakening it, is not feeding it with your attention anymore. Shops closed, you know, so you know, like your ego, it's never ending. It won't stop, and that's its, and through it making its own judgments and then having all this process, it starts building this identity. But ultimately the ego is just an idea. That's all it is. It just started off at a young age. You didn't even have an ego when you were first 2 years of your life. In order to make an ego, first you need to learn language, and then you need to, you know, comprehend ideas through language, and then you composite these ideas together and you form a bundle of identity out of these ideas. And these ideas also get input from what other people around you told you who you are, which is all illusion. Every idea is just an idea, therefore is an illusion. No matter what, even if it's a good idea or a bad idea, both the ideas are illusionary, because we're not an idea. We're the witnessing consciousness to the ideas. And that's where you have freedom and liberation, is when you recognize, now this is my identity. I am the observer to my ego. I am not my ego. I'm the observer to it. And as you do so, you like strengthen your pineal gland. You build that muscle, because it's never been used, our pineal gland. That's the part where all the observation and the awareness comes from. And you distinguish and discern between you and your ego. So these two words, distinguishment and discernment, they're two important words, because you're sort of like, you're creating a cognition between you and your ego. Now you're starting to, for the first time in your life it might be, you start to look at your ego and say, that's not me. That's not me. And you become familiar with its repetitive judgments. You also become familiar of when it likes to complain about certain situations. And then see what happens if you can accept this ego making its judgments. Also accept the emotion reactional response that the ego is having to its own judgments. At the start you won't be able to stop all this, because it's been going on, you've been feeding it for so long. So first is just acceptance. Accept its judgments. Recognize that it made a judgment just 1 second before the emotion came, and then accept the emotion. And then as you do so, you're sort of creating that discernment and distinguishment and that cognition between you and your ego. And then as you sort of accept it, its dramas and its pain lessens, and then what's left in its absence is the untouchable, effortless perfection that you are. And that's what's underneath us. And an example of this, I know that sounds a bit sort of funny, but an example is when we're relaxed. That's sort of like when our ego comes offline for a few moments. Or if we're watching TV, we're not focusing on our ego, so our attention's elsewhere. So that's what meditation's about. Like, you focus on your breath, is to pull the attention away from your ego where it normally dwells. Never-ending talking and monkey mind chatter, and emotional reactions. So you don't need a when you know, like, it's like when you relax, you don't have emotions. You're just at peace. So peace is not an emotion, but emotions come from when your ego puts a label upon experience, and then that label bounces back corresponding to the label. So the more intense the label and the more belief that you are the one making the label, the more intense the emotion comes back. So you start to learn all this thing within yourself. And then you become, you know, a lot more self-aware of what's going on. It's sort of like what Eckhart Tolle says, you become the ever-alert guardian to what's going on within yourself. You become present. You become alert and present, and you're witnessing what's happening within you. Because our ego makes anywhere, who knows, there's probably anywhere from 12 to 40 or more judgments a day. It's complaining about what things happen at work. Things happen with your current life situation, with your finance, with your relationships, this and that, and then there's a distinguishment. You can do things to fix your situation, nothing wrong with that. So, but you're not feeding your ego anymore about complaining about the situation. So you can fix it neutrally. All right, this is not right, I'm going to fix it. This needs to be changed, I'm not happy with that, then we'll change it. So you can keep doing things in life to change things and improve your situation, that's fine, but there's no need for the ego to become involved. The ego is not necessary, it's only a temporary thing. Sort of, we lose ourselves and then we find ourselves, and we know ourselves more than ever before through it. So, because as a baby, you're probably not going to know yourself as awareness. Even though you don't have an ego yet, you haven't built ideas yet, and you haven't developed a pseudo fake illusionary identity yet, you still don't know yourself as the awareness yet. So it's through creating this illusion, and you identify and say, that's me, and then eventually you step back and say, that's not me, I'm looking at that. And the ego comes online and offline. So that's another thing that sort of brings cognition and awareness within you. It's non-constant, the ego. It's on and off, on and off. But what's ever constant is us, which is the observer, and the field in which the ego can play up and down and appear and reappear and disappear. So we're that space, we're like the sky in which the clouds come through, and the ego is like the clouds, you can say. So that's how you become more mindful, guys. And the more people naturally become mindful in a way. Some people, it's rare, but some people become naturally mindful, just through their life experiences. Maybe they just accept things that are very challenging, which is what their ego's challenging makes, and that helps them create cognition and awareness, and it just sort of dissolves their ego naturally. So this is already happening within us naturally anyway, but the act of mindfulness speeds the process up a little bit by you deliberately and consciously just checking in within yourself occasionally throughout the day to see what's today's story about your ego. You know, what's it complaining about the traffic or whatever. Then you know, you start to learn and become familiar with its regular patterns, and that's all it is. It's just an idea pattern that keeps repeating itself like Groundhog Day, and then it just keeps growing because we keep feeding it. And then the weakening of it, the reversal of this process, is the standing back and witnessing it. Thank you.